All right, what's going on, everybody, and welcome back to another edition of Team Talk through Arrowhead Live. I'm going to be your host today. As always, my name is Caleb James, and today I just made this chart up, but I just want to go kind of through player by player, position by position, and really talk about, the Chiefs' initial 53-man roster. But I think it's important to note that the reason that I put initial in here, that I did put the words initial, is because this is going to be just the first of many roster combinations. And really, it's always cut date, who makes the team, who doesn't. The core of the team, the whole nucleus, those are going to be guys you don't have to worry about week to week. It's going to be mostly special teams contributors, players, who are maybe on the bubble of, being, week to week starts versus cuts and guys added to the practice squad. There's going to be a bunch of those guys that didn't make the initial cut that will be active at some point once they are added to the practice squad. But just for the fun of it, let's go through position by position. First position, obviously quarterback. No real surprise. Clearly, Patrick Mahomes is going to be this team's quarterback, but it did get interesting with the backups. Shane Buechele, a lot of people see him as maybe a potential backup in the NFL as a guy with maybe some talent. I don't know if I quite see it. I still see with him a lot of just decision making issues. I think he benefited a little bit, from having Andy Reid call the plays and the Chiefs having some very talented backup receivers and tight ends for him to throw the football to. But he did play well enough, and the team is obviously worried about him being poached if they cut him, being signed to another team. So they kept him on this roster. We'll see how long that lasts. He could be a trade bait, if they want to see if they can flip him into a 5th or 6th round draft pick. They kept Chad Henne as well. That also surprised me. I figured they'd only carry two. I figured it would either be Henne or Buechele. Henne looked like Henne in the preseason, where Shane Buechele has some of this athletic upside. Henne is kind of the grizzled vet. He actually threw a really nice pass to Sky Moore the other game that not many people are talking about. A PI ruined that one. But really, what you get is, Henne, great decision maker for the most part. He had that one throw against Cleveland here a couple of years ago, but he's going to come in and run the offense the way that Andy wants it run. But Buechele, a little younger, more athletic, definitely cheaper. That I don't see them going in. There's quite a bit of time before week one. I don't see them going in with all three. We'll have to see how that plays out. Running back, very interesting at this position because you got Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I think he was pretty much solidified. A lot of people didn't like him. There's a lot of people saying we'll trade for him. There is no real trade value for Clyde Edwards-Helaire. At this point, you're just you're better off going into the season and playing it with him. I don't really see a reason to trade the guy with the most experience in the offense at this point. Jerick McKinnon, it didn't do anything this preseason. That's okay. He's a guy, he's always been kind of banged up. So, he didn't show a lot, but they know what they have in him. Isaiah Pacheco, the rookie, I remember back in the preseason, back in May and June, right after the draft, there were people going, well, there's no guarantees that a 7th round rookie is going to make the roster. And for the most part, he was the darling of training camp this year. They recognized him as a big time, guy who can return in the kick game. He's shown his ability to catch the football. They certainly think he has upside. Struggled a little bit at times, but he finished with a strong performance against Green Bay on Thursday night. And maybe the guy who is, we've had people saying Ronald Jones is going to be 1,000-yard rusher and lead the team in carries. People saying Ronald Jones is going to be traded for, a pick or so. And then Ronald Jones makes the roster. Now he did, so I'll get into it in a minute when we get into the tight ends, because there's a lot of interesting stuff in that group also. But I think, the interesting thing to look at with him is, he did play well in his last game, which he was given a chance, and he didn't really do anything in the first two other games. We'll have to take a look at how that unfolds. And of course, Andy Reid is going to carry a fullback. Michael Burton is going to get that shot again. Let's go over to the tight ends. Travis Kelce locked in. He's looking to have a killer season. Jody Fortson started camp a little slow. People were saying, well, is he going to make the roster? He showed very quickly how valuable he is as a contested catch, pass catcher, a contested catch red zone guy, just another big body for them to get the ball to. I put Noah Gray here on twice. Not quite sure why I did that. Just ignore them for now. I think that a Matt Bushman might have had a chance. Noah Gray is going to be back on this roster, though. He's going to be able to show what he can do. So Blake Bell's the interesting one. They're technically going to start him on the IR. I have him on here already. And the reason that I have him on here already is just for the fact that he's going to be on the roster at some point throughout the season. He may end up being the guy that pushes Rojo off at some point when he comes back from the injury. We'll have to see how that plays out. Over here to wide receiver, you got Juju Smith-Schuster, Mecole Hardman, MVS, Sky Moore, and Justin Watson. There were a lot of surprises out of this room. Obviously, they announced that Josh Gordon gets cut. I don't think that surprised a ton of people. Cornell Powell got cut. I assume he'll be back on the practice squad. That's not a shocker. He didn't show a ton, but I think the one that surprised a lot of people was Daurice Fountain, who's been, a special teams guy, has been a guy who can contribute all over the place. He's another bigger body target they're trying to develop. They cut him. They're only rolling with 5 wide receivers. But within this 5, I think they believe they have a solid room, a really good unit. Juju, we didn't see a ton of him, but it's been said he's practicing again. Hardman, haven't seen a ton of. Sky Moore, didn't see a lot of. Really, for this group right here, the guys who this preseason was big for were MVS, who's getting comfortable. You see some chemistry with Mahomes, but also Justin Watson, who completely played his way onto the roster, after being a guy who wasn't guaranteed anything. Now it looks like he could be a guy that comes in and plays a little bit here and there. If not, playing some major time. And then the offensive line, all the starters from last season, including Wiley. But then you keep going down the line. You got Nick Allegretti. That's not a shocker. He's going to come back in and he's going to be, the swing lineman. And then it gets interesting because you got 3 guys who we all saw play tackle: Prince Tega Wanega, Geron Christian, and Darian Kinnard to round that group out. And it's interesting, to me at least, because Kinnard didn't look the greatest. And I know there are people saying, well, he's going to get cut and they add him to the practice squad. I think he gets poached by another team. I think the Chiefs recognize that also, so they know they have to make room for him. I don't think he's a tackle. I think we saw that this preseason. I think that the Chiefs wanted him to prove he couldn't play tackle before they wanted to try to move him inside to guard. But I think with that, he's going to get a year to at least learn the system. Geron Christian, he's probably going to be the odd man out whenever Lucas Niang does come back from injury, if he does. And Prince Tega Wanega, he started the preseason banged up a little bit, so he didn't get into the OT, or he didn't get into training camp that early. He didn't go through OTAs. I thought he played a pretty solid last couple of games throughout the season, throughout the preseason. He's definitely an athlete. You could see what a year in their system has done for him. He looks sharper. He looks a little quicker out of his stance. He looks like he's more confident in what he's doing. That'll be something interesting to keep an eye on moving forward. We get over here to the defensive line. Sorry, my throat is very dry for some reason. But, it's the usual suspects: Chris Jones, Frank Clark, Derek Nottie, all guys. There are people saying, oh, is Nottie going to be back? Yes, Derek Nottie's going to be back. He's a premier run stuffer. George Karlaftis, the first-round pick, and your veteran support, Carlos Dunlap. Then it gets really interesting because they had brought in Taylor Stallworth and Danny Shelton. Danny Shelton a little later. People said, well, maybe he's just going to be a lock to make the roster. Barely saw him play, barely saw him do anything. They moved on from him very quickly. And Taylor Stallworth competed all preseason, lost out on the very end. They give the shot to Colin Saunders, who's been on the roster. And this does lead me to an interesting point. This team is dangerously thin at the defensive tackle position because along with Jones and Nottie, they have Saunders and Wharton. And Wharton's really not, your big run stuffer either. Wharton's like your sub package. Let's get him in. on 3rd and long, passing down situation, and get him at that 4-eye 3-tech where he can go to work on a guard, or get him lined up as like a 2-eye where he can go to work on the center. There's that. And then for that final defensive end spot, I thought it was Malik Herring versus Josh Kaindoh. If I were choosing the roster, I would have kept Taylor Stallworth around. I would have kept Malik Herring, and I probably would have released Josh Kaindoh. And the thing that doesn't make any sense to me about that really is Kaindoh hasn't shown anything to where you think he's really going to be a threat for another team to come poach him off your practice squad. I don't think that was ever, going to be an issue for them, other than the fact that, he just doesn't show a lot when he's out there. He looks lost in the run game. He still hasn't developed any real pass rush move that's going to be capable to do anything in a game. And Malik Herring, despite missing almost 2 seasons of football, came out and he played a decent preseason. He looked capable against the run. He was stout against the run a couple of times. He looks like a reserve defensive end to me. He had to have been one of the last guys to make the roster. So, we'll have to see what happens to Kaindoh, but he's probably just holding on by a thread right now. And then we come over here to linebackers. There was a surprise cut, but I think the word on the street is he'll be back here soon once they move Blake Bell. He's another guy. You see the Blake Bell situation, they got to move guys all around. But they cut Elijah Lee, and he was going to be, your one of your special teams aces, going to be a guy that can step in. He knows how to play all the linebacker positions. You can plug and play him. But really, I think Spags was confident with Nick Bolton, Willie Gay. Darius Harris he played a great preseason. He really showed up and showed out all preseason long. He made plays all over the place. And then Leo Chenal, didn't get to see a ton of him with the ones doing much, but he made his impact known every time he was on the field. He definitely looks like he's got a future playing for this team. And then to sum it all up, to end things out, you got your defensive backs. You got Justin Reed, Juan Thornhill, Trent McDuffie, Rashad Fenton, Chris Lamons, Sneed, Brian Cook, Deon Bush, Watson, and Williams. They kept almost all of the draft picks, cutting just Nazeeh Johnson. They let go DiCaprio Bootle, but I know Chris Lamons is a little bit of a surprise, but he's going to be a Dave Toub special teams guy. Obviously Reed and Thornhill, the starters, McDuffie starter, Fenton starter, Sneed starter. Cook showed a lot in a reserve role. Deon Bush is going to be a special teams ace, but he showed he has ability. And then really the 2 names to watch are Williams and Watson, both rookies. Both showed some level of ability. At some point this season, they are going to be asked to step up and probably play a little bit. Pardon me, my throat is very dry right now. But with that, you're just going to have to watch for their development. I assume Nazeeh Johnson will be added to the practice squad. This is also a unit where I could maybe see them bringing in another veteran corner. And then KPS goes Butker, Townsend, Winchester, and that whole unit. There's no real change there. But what are some positions I can see them add or subtract from? I can see them subtract from the defensive line and defensive backs if they want to bring back in, another defensive end, or another cornerback. I could see them maybe looking to add another wide receiver too, cut down on a running back. And I think, I don't think there's any way this team goes into the season with 3 quarterbacks on the active roster, just because there are needs at other spots. So it'll be interesting to see how all of this plays out. It should be a good time. I always have fun recording these. You guys know where to catch me at on Arrowhead Live at CJ Scoobs. We're going to have some more great content out for you here later on, but I hope everyone has a great day. This is only the start. There'll be plenty of rosters to come out, but this is the official one. So congratulations to all the guys who made the initial roster, and everybody have a great evening.